Hi, I'm Tim Kane, entertainment editor at the Herald and Review, and I'm at my desk. This month marks the 40th anniversary of the release of A, my favorite album of all time, B, the piece that I consider the most significant artistic achievement of my lifetime, and C, the thing I consider arguably the most important artistic achievement of the 20th century, and that would be the Beatles' White Album. I have some copies of it here, and you can see why they call it the White Album. In fact, that's the back of the White Album. This is the front of the White Album. I have 3 of them here. I have 5 or 6 of these in my collection. A couple of them I have in storage. One is in storage because it's a white vinyl, rare edition of that. Another is in storage because it's a numbered edition. When these originally came out, each one was an individual collector's edition. Right here, there was a number stamped, and it was a number that as it came off the press, there was a number stamped on it to indicate that it was a limited edition of one. You know, you might have 3 million copies, but only one has your number on it. Actually, the one that's numbered 00000005 is up for auction, or going up for auction. I think it's up right now. Astonishing. This copy here is my first copy. This is one that I got when I was in junior high school. My father worked in the big city. I lived in a little town that didn't have a record store, and I sent my father with some cash to buy a copy of this. A few years later, I bought one that was not embossed. You see that this one does have an embossed cover. And this one, the word "The Beatles" is just printed on there. That's a reissue that was on Capitol Records. And then this one is embossed, and it's an import. It's from Great Britain. This is a mono edition of the album. There were stereo and mono, different mixes for it. The interesting thing about the White Album is it came out in the period of great turmoil for the band. They're back in the studio 6 months, 9 months after releasing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the album, and after the worldwide broadcast of All You Need Is Love. Those were both high water marks, things that made people feel good about liking the Beatles, and all of a sudden the Beatles found themselves not liking one another.
I'll play if you want me to play, and I won't play if you don't want me to play. Whatever it is that makes you happy, that's what I want to do.
You're so confused. You're delivering lines from an ex-movie 3 months before we film it.
So they're in the studio, and they're recording all of these songs that they had written, and they end up recording in excess of 30 songs. There are 30 songs on the White Album itself. And as they're doing this, they're all in their late 20s. They're starting a business, Apple Records. This was actually the first album released on Apple Records. And there are any number of changes that are brought into their midst, not the least of which being Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono literally moved into the studio with the Beatles and laid on a bed during some of the time while they were recording. It's something that nowadays bands might look at and think, well, that's okay. But that would be a lesson that they learned from the Beatles, because it wasn't okay for the Beatles. There was just a lot of tension as all this was going on.
All I don't need is love.
Their ability to pull together all of this stuff while all of that was going on, I think, is a testament to them, and ultimately the White Album is a terrific testament to what they were doing.
This is a testament to us.
There are any number of people who will talk about how it's too broad, it's too wide encompassing. To me, it's a retrospective of the first 60 years of the 20th century as far as popular music goes. There's blues, there's folk music, there's dance hall music, there's crooner stuff, for lack of a better word, there's pop, there's rock and roll, there's a little bit of everything. And to me, that's what makes it fantastic. And one of the most fantastic things about it, I think, is Revolution 9, which is an 8.5-minute sound collage. Just something that you just don't find on albums that end up being #1. I admired their adventuresomeness, and it's an album that I go back to, and at various times, each song on it has been my favorite song. I would not cut it up at all. About 25 years ago, I saw Gary Puckett perform in concert. And the way Gary Puckett was introduced was he sold more records than the Beatles in 1968, which I thought was hilarious because Gary Puckett put out 4 or 6 singles that year, I think, and put out in his band, he and his band, the Union Gap, put out 2 albums. Well, of course you're gonna, if you sell anything at all, you're gonna sell more than the Beatles. What the Beatles put out in 1968 was the single Hey Jude, backed with Revolution, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest single ever released in the history of music. The single Lady Madonna, and all those were recorded during the White Album sessions, and then they released the White Album in November, at the end of November. Well, yeah, you're gonna sell more if you've got more product out there. There's a lot of you probably thinking, who the heck is Gary Puckett? But I'd wager that most of you know who the Beatles are. They're on my tie. I'm Tim Kaine. Number 9, number 9, number 9. Turn me on, Dead Man. And I'm at my desk.
I'm back in the USSR. Hey, you don't know how lucky you are, boys. Back in the USSR.